I used to believe distance was a form of control. If I didn't get too close, nothing could really touch me. If I didn't explain myself, I couldn't be misunderstood. If I left first, I wouldn't be left. That logic had carried me through most of my adult life. It worked, until it didn't. I met her at a time when I wasn't looking for anything. Not because I was healing, not because I was broken, but because I was comfortable being untouched. Her name was Claire. She didn't arrive loudly in my life. No dramatic entrance, no instant connection story worth retelling. We met through routine. Same coffee place, same hour, different days that eventually started to overlap. At first, we just nodded. Then we talked about the weather. Then about nothing important. And somehow, that nothing started to matter. Claire had a way of listening that made silence feel intentional. She didn't rush to fill gaps, didn't interrupt to prove she was interesting, didn't ask questions that felt like tests. She just stayed. That alone unsettled me. I noticed how my body reacted before my mind did. I stayed longer at the cafe. I checked the door more often. I felt a strange resistance when she didn't show up. That was new. I didn't like new. One morning, she sat across from me without asking. "You always sit alone," she said, not accusing, just observing. "I like it," I replied. She nodded. "I can tell." That should have ended it. Instead, it started something. We talked for 40 minutes, about work, about cities we'd lived in and left behind, about how time feels faster after 30. She didn't overshare. I didn't either. But there was an understanding forming quietly between us. I told myself it was harmless. Two adults talking over coffee. Nothing at risk, nothing expected. That's how I justified seeing her again the next day, and the day after that. A week later, she asked me something unexpected. "Why do you always leave before finishing your coffee?" I froze. I hadn't noticed I was doing that. "Habit," I said. She smiled gently. "Looks more like avoidance." I laughed it off, but it stayed with me. I started paying attention to my patterns, how I exited conversations early, how I changed topics when things got personal, how I kept emotional doors unlocked, but never open. Claire didn't push, which made it worse. We started walking together after coffee. Short walks. Nothing planned. Just enough time for the city to fade into background noise. She told me about her last relationship. Not in detail. Just the ending. "He disappeared emotionally long before he left physically," she said. I said nothing. That night, I replayed the conversation more than I wanted to admit. Not because it reminded me of someone else, because it reminded me of myself. A few weeks passed, our routine solidified, still no labels, still no expectations. But something was shifting. I noticed how my chest tightened when she got quiet, how I wanted to explain myself when she misunderstood me, something I'd never cared to do before. That scared me. One evening, she invited me to dinner. Nothing fancy. Her place, takeout, low lights. I said yes without thinking, then spent the entire day convincing myself to cancel. I didn't, and that was the first decision that changed everything. Her apartment felt lived in, not curated, not performative. Books half read, shoes by the door, a plant that clearly survived neglect. It felt real. We ate on the couch, talked slower than usual. There was a moment, brief but sharp, where our knees touched. My instinct was to move away. I didn't. "Are you always this quiet when you're thinking?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "What are you thinking now?" I hesitated. This was the point where I usually redirected, joked, deflected, changed the subject. Instead, I said the truth, that I don't know how close is too close. She didn't respond immediately. Then, neither do I. That was it. No dramatic revelation. Just two people admitting uncertainty. But something in me shifted. Later that night, when I left her place, I didn't feel relief. I felt exposure, and I hated how much I wanted to go back. Distance had always made me feel safe, but for the first time, it felt like something I was hiding behind, and I wasn't sure it would protect me, which was the problem. Claire didn't text me immediately. I didn't text her either, not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know how much wanting was acceptable. I told myself space was healthy, mature, respectful, but if I was honest, it was familiar, and familiarity had always been my hiding place. When we met again, 2 days later, she didn't mention the silence. She never did. That's what made it loud. We went back to coffee. Same table, same time, but something invisible had changed position between us, like furniture moved in the dark. I noticed how carefully she watched me now, not suspicious, curious, as if she was trying to understand the rules of a game I hadn't explained. I had a nice time, she said finally. Simple sentence, no pressure. I nodded. So did I. Pause. She waited. I didn't add anything. That was the first crack. Weeks passed. We kept seeing each other, but I felt myself tightening. I answered slower, shared less, pulled back just enough to feel in control again. She didn't confront me. She adjusted, and that hurt more than confrontation would have. One evening, while walking, she stopped suddenly. I need to ask you something, she said. Her voice was calm. That scared me. Do you want this to grow? She asked. Or do you want it to stay safe? I laughed lightly. What's the difference? She didn't smile. Safe for who? She asked. That question landed heavier than it should have. I wanted to explain myself, tell her about my past, my logic, my reasons. Instead, I said nothing. Silence, my oldest defense. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Just that. Okay. That night, she didn't text. The next day, she didn't show up for coffee. The day after that, still nothing. That's when panic arrived. Not loud, quiet, like realizing you've been bleeding for a while. I replayed everything. The moments I pulled away, the times I chose control over clarity, how often I let her walk alone emotionally while I stayed untouched. A week later, I ran into her by accident, or fate. I don't know which I believe in more. She looked steady, not distant, grounded. I didn't disappear, she said before I could speak. I just stopped waiting. That sentence changed something fundamental in me. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. My voice surprised even me. She looked at me carefully. I wasn't asking you to know, she said. I was asking you to try. There it was, the moment I'd avoided my entire life. Not love, choice. I realized something then. Distance had never been strength. It was avoidance disguised as control. I'm scared, I said. The words felt foreign. She didn't move closer, didn't touch me. She just nodded. So am I, she said. That's usually where honesty starts. We didn't fix everything that night. No dramatic reunion, no promises. But I walked her home, slowly, without checking the time. We started again, differently, with awkward conversations, missteps, uncomfortable truths. I didn't suddenly become open, but I became present. Months later, I noticed something subtle. I finished my coffee. I stayed in conversations longer. I didn't leave first. Distance still exists in my life, but it no longer defines me. I learned something important from Claire. Closeness isn't about certainty. It's about staying when leaving feels easier. I used to think distance meant control. Now I know. Sometimes it just means fear with good posture. And the day I stopped stepping back was the day my life finally moved forward.